Mr. Chair, council members, and participants, we are now live.
Good morning. Today is Friday, April 8th, and this is the Committee on Streets and Services. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, city council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notice that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the roll to take attendance of members that are present? Please indicate that you are present by saying aye. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen. Mr. Clerk.
Vice Chair Squilla.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Present.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Squilla. Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Bass. Councilmember O. Councilmember Brooks.
Good morning.
Good morning, Councilmember. Good to hear you.
Good morning. I'm sorry. This is Councilman Bass. I am present.
Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I am present.
Good to hear you, Councilmember. And Chair Thomas.
I'm present. Thank you, Mr. Maynard. A quorum.
And I'm sorry, David O is present as well. I apologize.
Thank you, Councilmember. We appreciate you and good morning.
Good morning.
A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing on the Committee of Streets and Services regarding bills number 211020, 220190, 220222, 220 223, 220 241, and 220 242. Please note, bills 220 241 and 220 242 are being held at the sponsor's request and will not be heard or acted on during this hearing. Mr. Maynard, will you please read the titles of the bills?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Bill 211020, an ordinance authorizing encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk café in the vicinity of 762 South 10th Street, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220190, an ordinance amending Chapter 10-700 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Refuse and Littering, by revising the annual fee for neighborhood sanitation and cleaning services and exempting owner-occupied duplexes from the annual neighborhood sanitation and cleaning service fee requirements, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220222, an ordinance authorizing the relocation of the southwesterly curbline of Ridge Avenue from Calumet Street to a point northwestwardly therefrom, and the northwesterly curbline of Calumet Street from Ridge Avenue to Kelly Drive on City Plan number 163, authorizing the plotting on said city plan of an area for public pedestrian use extending along the northwesterly side of Calumet Street from Ridge Avenue to a point southwesterly therefrom, and authorizing acceptance of the grant to the city of the said area for public pedestrian use, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill 220223, an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on South 61st Street, both sides between Lindbergh Boulevard to just past Eastwick Avenue. Bill 220241, an ordinance authorizing the installation, ownership, and maintenance of a streetery in the right-of-way adjacent to 738 South 11th Street, currently the location of a restaurant known as Hawthorne's, under certain terms and conditions. And finally, Bill 220242, An ordinance authorizing the installation, ownership, and maintenance of a streetery in the right-of-way adjacent to 1631 Packer Avenue, currently the location of a restaurant known as Palladium, under certain terms and conditions. These are the bills to be that were listed for the hearing today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Before we begin to hear testimony from any of the witnesses we have today, everyone who's been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this is a public hearing and is being recorded. Because the hearing is being recorded, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be a part of the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for questions or comments they have for witnesses, I will note for the record that this time that we will use the chat feature available on Microsoft Teams to allow any members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for that purpose. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the first witness to testify that we have this morning?
The first bill we'll hear is Bill 211020, and Noel Marconi from Streets is the sole testifier.
Good morning. Good seeing you. Please state your name for the record, and you may begin with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 211020, introduced by Councilmember Johnson. This bill authorizes the owner to construct, own, and maintain an encroachment in the form of an open-air café on the sidewalk located at 762 South 10th Street. The cafe includes a total of 11 tables and chairs. 7 tables will be with chairs will be located adjacent to the building and encroach approximately 6 feet onto the north sidewalk of Catherine Street, leaving approximately 6 feet of clear, unobstructed footway. 4 tables with chairs will be located adjacent to the building and encroach approximately 6 feet onto the west sidewalk of South 10th Street, leaving approximately 6 feet of clear, unobstructed footway. The Streets Department has no objections to these proposed encroachments and supports the passage of this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of this committee for this particular witness? Hearing none, I want to say thank you for your testimony. It's greatly appreciated. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the next witness to testify for this bill?
There's no further witnesses for this bill. The next bill we'll hear from is Bill 220190. Our sole testifier is Deputy Commissioner Rebecca Lopez-Chris from the Revenue Department.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. My name is Rebecca Lopez-Chris, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Outreach at the Department of Revenue. I'm here today to present testimony in support of Bill 220190. This bill codifies 2 changes made last year to the city's commercial trash fee or refuse fee. First, it increases the fee amount from $300 to $500 from fiscal year 21 onwards. This increase was originally enacted via regulation to help make up Philadelphia's budget gap during the first few months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Even with this increase, the weekly cost of trash pickup is less than $10 per pickup and far below many commercial services. The bill also fully exempts owner-occupied duplexes from the fee from fiscal year 2022 onwards. These property types previously qualified for a 50% fee reduction. To provide additional financial relief to owner-occupants, the city expanded its exemption for owner-occupied properties to include duplexes. To qualify, the owner must live in 1 unit and have 1 other rental unit. So although we were able to implement both changes through regulations last year, the law department recommends these updates be reflected in the Philadelphia Code. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of this committee for this particular bill?
Councilmember Thomas, this is Mark Squilla.
Yeah.
Real quick for clarification. So owner-occupied duplexes would be exempt. How about if it's a triplex?
Excuse me, no, triplexes do not have an exemption.
All right, so if they live in the triplex, then they would have to pay the $500 fee. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I I have a clarifying question too. So just so I understand, what the recommendation is that we increase the fee, but simultaneously add an exemption option for certain folks.
So the fee has already been increased. City Council voted on that through the budget process last year. So the fee is already increased, but it was done through regulation. So we now need to codify that change.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Are there any other questions from members of the committee for this particular witness? Hearing none, I want to say thank you for your testimony. It's greatly appreciated. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the next witness to testify on this bill?
That was the only witness we have for this bill. The next bill we'll hear on is Bill 220222. We'll hear from Noel Marconi from Streets and Sarah Chu from Planning.
Good morning to both of you. Feel free to state your name for the record, and you can communicate your testimony consecutively.
Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 220222, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by Steve Knownmaker of Method Company on behalf of CRP GO Ridge Flats Owner LLC. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorize the relocation of the southwesterly curb line of Ridge Avenue from Calumet Street to a point northwestwardly therefrom, and the establishing of a curb line along the northwesterly side of Calumet Street from Ridge Avenue to Kelly Drive, and the plotting on the city plan of an area for public pedestrian use extending along the northwesterly side of Calumet Street from Ridge Avenue to a point southwestwardly therefrom. The proposed curb line changes will establish a right-hand turning lane along Ridge Avenue for traffic turning onto Calumet Street and a curb lay-by lane along Calumet Street for drop-off and delivery purposes. The proposed area for public pedestrian use will ensure that sufficient sidewalk width is provided for pedestrian traffic through the lay-by area. These actions will facilitate plans for a mixed-use residential and commercial development of the abutting property. This ordinance is supported by the Department of Streets and is recommended for favorable action. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Good morning, Chair Member Thomas and members of Committee on Streets and Services. My name is Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 220222, which was introduced by Councilmember Jones on March 10th, 2022. Bill number 220222 will relocate a portion of curb line on Ridge Avenue and Calumet Street to establish a variable width footway on Calumet Street and plot on city plan an 8 feet wide public pedestrian use easement. This action is to facilitate a residential and commercial mixed-use development that will include approximately 142 residential units and 117 parking spaces with commercial uses on the ground floor. The City Planning Commission will consider this bill at its meeting on April 21st, 2022 with a staff recommendation for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of this committee for this particular panel and this bill? Hearing none, I want to say thank you for your testimony. It's greatly appreciated. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the next witness in the next bill?
The next witness we'll hear from is Noel Marconi from Streets, testifying on 220223, and that will be the last bill heard before the committee today.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. Please state your name for the record and you may begin with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Thomas and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 220223, introduced by Councilmember Johnson. This ordinance establishes no truck parking regulations on both sides of South 61st Street between Lindbergh Boulevard and Eastwick Avenue. Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. The regulations can be posted within 30 days of the bill's passage. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from members of this committee for this particular witness on this bill? Hearing none, I want to say thank you for your testimony. It's greatly appreciated. Mr. Maynard, I believe that's our agenda for the day.
That is correct for the public hearing. We now head to public meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. Are there any other questions or comments from anyone? Is there anybody who is present in this hearing whose name I did not call that wishes to offer some level of testimony for the bills being considered today? Hearing none, I want to thank all of the panels of witnesses for their participation today. We value your opinions and we appreciate your support. I now invite all panels of witnesses to please disconnect from the meeting before we go into the public meeting. We will now pause the proceedings briefly as multiple participants leave the hearing. This concludes the public hearing of the committee. We will now go into the public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bills before this committee today. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are present when your name is called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak. Mr. Maynard.
Vice Chair Squilla.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Present.
Good to hear from you. Councilmember Bass.
Good morning. I'm present. Thank you.
And you as well. Councilmember O.
Yes, good morning. I'm present.
Too many Zooms. Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember Johnson. And Councilmember Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I am present.
And of course, I'm present as well. Thank you, colleagues. We appreciate it. The chair recognizes Councilmember Swiller for a motion to approve an amendment to bill number 211020. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry. Thank you. A quorum of the committee is present. And we are now starting our public meeting. Now the chair recognizes Councilmember Swiller for a motion to approve an amendment to bill number 211020. Mr. Clerk, you're right. Too many Zooms.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 211020. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that this amendment be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that the amendment to the bill that was just read by Councilmember Swiller. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries and the amendment has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilmember Swiller for a single motion on the bills that are being considered today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the bill number 211020 as amended, 220190, 220222, and 220223 be approved and reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of these bills at the next session of council.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that the bills just read by Councilmember Squilla, including the amendments that have been approved today, be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of these bills at the next council session. All those in favor will indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Beautiful people, thank you very much. This concludes our meeting today. This concludes the business before the Committee on Streets and Services today. Again, thank you very much for your attendance. It's very much appreciated. And of course, Tech Team, thank you for all you do. Mr. Clerk, thank you as well. Everybody have a beautiful Friday and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.